welcome back to my channel. I'm the Spell Singer. This is my ongoing review of the series of game books known as Fighting Fantasy. And in this review, I'm going to give you a quick look at this title with its book number, and then I'll read the blurb to you. We'll talk about the plot and the locations for this book. We'll look at some of the game mechanics on the adventure sheet, take a look at the artwork, some of my own likes and dislikes, some fun facts, any errors, and a summary with a score out of 10 for this book. So this is The Tower of Destruction. This is book 46, and it was written by Keith Martin, also known as Carl Sargent. And this is way back in 1991, and you've got this amazing front cover here by good old Terry Oakes. But all the internal illustrations were by Pete Nifton. So let's have a read of the blurb for this one. So it says here, Death from the Skies. While you are on an expedition, the winter calm of your northern home is shattered by a blazing sphere of death. It comes flying down through the winter skies in a maelstrom of fire and lightning to rain destruction upon your village. But where did it come from? Who made it? And can it be stopped? You must take up this quest to find the answers to all these questions, but beware. The severe is only the key to a far greater danger that threatens all of Allansia. Okay, so let's get on with this review. Let's have a look at the plot, and then we'll check out the locations for this book. So in this one, you've got to travel to the Tower of Destruction in order to gain revenge for the slaughter of your loved ones. And it's set up in the snowy wastelands, sort of northern wilderness of Allansia. And the story kicks off when this blazing black sphere falls from the sky and obliterates your home village right in front of you. And you're fueled by this kind of vengeance. You've got to track the trail of destruction that's left by this sphere to find the source of it and uncover its dark magical secrets, and ultimately face this demon that's behind it, who's controlling this tower of destruction. And the setting feels quite arduous, very atmospheric, pitting you against sort of this all these different tough environmental hazards. There's this weird polar bear and all manner of bizarre creatures that face you on your trek into the north. And in terms of location, if you can see this map here, this is Titan, so we're in Titan as usual. You can see Allansia, the old world, and cool. But if we zoom in on Allansia, you can see here you begin your adventure, leaving the city of Zengis, having sold all your furs and pelts. And you're heading home for Broaddale Valley, which is somewhere around here near the Icefinger Mountains. I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's not a million miles out. So that's where we are in this book. So, the game mechanics and the adventure sheet for this one. Now in this game, you've got this new score, the honour score. It starts at 6, and you can keep a track of this record. It can affect your adventure as the game book sort of unfolds. You're also required to record the time that elapses from the start of your adventure until you reach the Ice Palace, which is kind of where you're heading up in the north of those Icefinger Mountains. And so you basically count the days, and each time the text tells you that you have a nap, you sleep or you bed down for the night, each time that happens, you tick off one extra day. So you just add 1 to this box. And it's with this time tracking that you're kind of required to keep a record of how many days overall that it actually takes you to reach your goal. But you might think that this is quite key to the success of this game, but it isn't really. It doesn't impact too heavily, like, for example, Seas of Blood, where that logbook was detrimental to the success of that game book. Now, this honour mechanic that I mentioned is quite useful. So, for example, the more honourable you are throughout this game, the better off you will be. Like, you can make friends with this group of elves, and having them on your side will prove very useful throughout this book. It does play a major role and can easily be the difference between winning and losing this adventure. So if you think about it, if you kill people in cold blood, or you plunder graves, your honour is going to go down. But if you do good deeds and generally be a good person, your honour score will rise. Now, there's some interesting little game mechanics in this book that take form of little puzzle games. So for example, there's this clock face puzzle on reference 14, which I'll read to you so you get an idea of it. Yeah, this clock face puzzle. So this is what it says. You suddenly find yourself back on the floor below the gallery. Hanging in the air is a small item of jewellery and you can't make out properly from here. Below it is a monolith of ice, which has appeared in the room, on which are 8 clock faces. The first 7 have a hand chiselled on them, but the 8th is bare. The first 7 run in the following sequence. So you get this little image here. So you can see the clock faces and obviously the hands that point. You have to work out the 8th and final symbol which would complete the sequence correctly. I do not help those without wits and skill. Melan's voice echoes one last time. If you solve the puzzle, you will know which position the clock face and the hand should be pointing to, and how many arrowheads there will be on the hand. Multiply these 2 numbers together, turn to the paragraph with that number. So yeah, you've got this little image here. And it's a tricky one. So yeah, the clock puzzle, it is necessary to win this game. So you've got to solve this puzzle to progress. The puzzle is kind of, you could do it standard code breaking, skills to sort of get around this puzzle. But unfortunately, the 7th clock face there, it's supposed to point to 2 p.m, whereas it kind of points to 1:30. So you're already on a bit of a back foot because you could slip up there thinking that time says 1:30 when in fact it says 2. But here's a puzzle spoiler, so skip ahead. Because I'm going to tell you how to solve this one. So of course this is a 24-hour clock. You've got the hours on those clock faces and you've got these little arrow heads as well. So you look at that first one, it points to 10 o'clock. So there's only 1 arrowhead, so 10 times 1 equals 10. You've got the second clock, it's 5 p.m. There are 4 arrowheads, so 5 times 4 is 20. You keep going through that. And you will find each answer is a multiple of 10. So by the time you get to 70, you can kind of work out that the next answer is going to be 80. So that unknown clock face will send you to 80. Now, that's how you solve it. And like I say, it wasn't too tricky, but with modern access to that mystical portal known as the internet, it's so much easier now to sort of be able to work this out. If it did give you any grief back in the day, you would have had absolutely nothing but your own mind to solve that one. So yeah. Now, let's have a look at the adventure sheet. So here it is in all its glory. You've got your skill, your stamina, your luck. There's that box for the honour as well, and a place for your time that's elapsed. You've got an equipment list here where you can obviously record all your stuff, but you also have a possessions list. I don't really know what the difference is, so when I played this last to finish it, I put the bigger items in the equipment list and the possessions, like pocket items, that's where I put those. There's also an enemy encounter box, which I never used. I don't know what that's for. I mean, why would you want to record the number of encounters? I don't know. It doesn't go towards anything, so yeah, so there's the adventure sheet. Nice, straightforward, but does the job perfectly well. Okay, let's look at the artwork. So I've been running the artwork through this video, and the interior illustrations are by Pete Lifton. So he's the artist and illustrator whose work has appeared in another Fighting Fantasy book, which is The Siege of Sardath, which we will get to soon. So there's that one. There's also the colour map from Leo Hartas on the inside cover. Now, bit of an anomaly here. So obviously I have no colour map. And I scoured the internet. I could not find any sign of that map. So please put me out of my misery and comment if you have a copy with this Leo Hartas map, because I certainly haven't got it and I find no record of it. I don't know whether it's a generic Allansia type map or what, but yeah, let me know. So there's that. Colour map. So Pete Lifton's interior illustrations are suitably dark and imposing. Lots of sort of dark elves and ice ghosts throughout this book, all depicted really well. Kind of a striking aspect of Nifton's art is the way his golems that he depicts, kind of drawn as a larger size in comparison to you, comes across really well, kind of gives you that threat that you love in this kind of artwork. Now I've got Terry Oakes' front cover, of course, here. So this kind of depicts the Black Tower concept while it's firebombing your little village. Yeah, so your village kind of gets a bit of a pummeling at the start in its frozen wastes. So you've got the frozen kind of background that captures the essence of this book really nicely. You've got the tower in the foreground there. And it kind of just adds a little element to how bizarre this adventure truly is. So yeah, top marks for that front cover, Terry Oakes. And of course, I have got a fave picture, which is these night gaunts here on reference 171, which I've got to read to you so you can truly appreciate Pete Nifton's work and what he had to go on. So it says here, "This is a very bad move. You open the door to a guard room where two bizarre creatures from the demonic realms react immediately to your intrusion. Their faces are completely smooth, black and blank, and their cloaked and cowled bodies shine black as ebony. The night gaunts scream for help as they fly at you to fight." And then, of course, you get into a big punch up with them. It says here, the problem is that two more of these horrors appear from the open doorway and attack from opposite directions. And then, yeah, the fight gets infinitely more complicated. But yeah, this image here, you got these like long fingers protruding. You got these kind of faceless hoods. And it's kind of harks back to that artwork, which kind of reaches out to you and leaps off the page like the good old days. So yeah, that's my fave. Okay, my likes and my dislikes for Tower of Destruction. So I love all the internal illustrations, obviously, by Pete Nifton. They're sort of universally praised. Those golems throughout the book, the night demons, the flying tower, they're all highly detailed and they kind of bring the adventure to life. The desolate, snowy climate, really like that, kind of makes the adventure a bit gritty, a bit more real, quite rewarding and suitably epic. The book kind of boasts an exhilarating conclusion as well, featuring a really tense race to escape this exploding flying tower. So if you can imagine, you get to the tower and you fight your way through all the traps and encounters, and you get to the boss and he is really tough. You battle your way through and then you think, oh, okay, I've done it, brilliant. But no, you've got to escape the tower because of course it's all on fire and it's going to crash. And there's all these instant deaths on the way out. So you finally find a way out where you can sort of jump from the tower and kind of parachute to safety. And then as you land, you think, yes, I've done it. But no, you get this nasty little twist in the tail, which I won't spoil. Yeah, just when you think you've won, you get a curveball, a little sting in the tail. However, this book is quite famous for its frustrating, near impossible puzzles. So specifically involved with those clock faces that I mentioned earlier. And there's this one with musical notations, which if you don't have much history or understanding of music or sheet music, you may struggle. Some puzzles even suffer from sort of typos or logic errors, which can make them even more frustrating or even mathematically impossible. But we've got the internet now, so that's good. But this book is kind of plagued by tangled referencing as well. So some paragraphs kind of link incorrectly, which I'll go into in the errors, or ask you to sort of interact with items that you can't have possessed by that point. But otherwise, it's an awesome book. Now, I've got some fun facts, or a morbid fact, actually, would be closer. Pete Nifton kind of updated on the Titanica website. He passed away in 2025, so at the time of this recording, which is July of 2026, we have lost Pete Nifton, and with him an artist who kind of shaped not just that Blood Bowl business, which I'll put some artwork here if you don't know about Blood Bowl, but also an entire generation of illustrations. You know, he's a legendary artist whose work kind of helped define that Blood Bowl and many fantasy worlds as well, from the pitch to the pages of classic game books, and inspired many others to do so. Blood Bowl is kind of like a board game of sports mayhem. So you've got to score these points by smashing your rivals and win sort of fame and glory. And of course, we have Nifton's contribution to all the artwork that ran through that as well. So yeah, you can tell from this imagery here that it was something special, and it's got a big fan base, so worth looking into. Now, I mentioned there was a couple of errors. Yes, so there's a few incorrect references, which are a bit of a game breaker unless you know the corrections. So here they are. The reference 3 should point to 189 instead of 88. So if you end up on 189, it isn't going to make an awful lot of sense. 88 is the correct reference. Then you've got reference 92, which should possibly point to 274 instead of 252. And then similarly, you've got reference 306, which should point to reference 4 instead of 138. So the puzzles, there's this puzzle sequence, like a number sequence, where you've got to add the squares of 1, 3, 5, 7, and 11. So it's a bit of a mathematical problem here. So I think the intended solution is to add 13 squared to get the answer. So you've got that little sequence there, and the intended solution, I think, is to add 13 squared. However, I think either Keith Martin meant to add all the odd squares, in which case he missed 9 squared, or more likely meant to add all the square primes, in which case he should have added 2 squared, not 1 squared. But I may be wrong. And the last thing I was going to mention, on reference 369, the snow fox in your inventory will turn into a silver fox while you're not looking. Those pesky silver foxes. Right, let's give this a summary and a score out of 10. This book is really far out there. If you try to kind of rationalise the plot, you will realise how truly far-fetched it really is. This does not detract too much from the experience of playing the adventure. The plot is epic, in its scope. Its highlights are well developed, but it is really bizarre and far out there. It's not up there with the Skylord in its absurdity, but it is sort of around the Black Vein Prophecy sort of reference. So if you've read the Black Vein Prophecy and you like that, you will probably love this. Much has gone into making the key stages seem real and believable, and you've got combined with that atmosphere of snowy wasteland and fantasy, it's enough to carry this one through quite nicely. The final showdown in the tower, although brief, the battle is intense, which works quite nicely, so a change from constantly rolling dice. It leaves you sort of focusing more on the earlier stages of the book, which effectively is 3 acts. So you've got the first act, which is the trek across the ice wastes. And then you've got that exploration of the ice palace, that kind of hub, acts as a hub. And then finally facing the demon in the tower itself. The adventure is quite linear. You can't divert away from the chosen path too far. The only real scope for exploration is with all the cool little subplots that pop up through this book, and you can get involved in these, and even though these will eventually deter you back to that linear path, but there's quite a nice little bit of sidestepping in this one, so change your route slightly, but yeah, you will finally eventually return back to some choke point, so you can't deviate too far. Kind of similar to Sir Ian's books in that respect. So should you diverge even slightly, you're quickly put back onto that path, that true path. And because of this, some of the continued paragraphs can sometimes read a bit awkwardly, as if the book assumes you will only ever be following the exact correct path. So yeah, there's something to look out for. After you've read a few of Keith Martin's books, you will start noticing some similarities. For one, that kind of math cheat proofing he absolutely loves. Most of his books have some kind of puzzle in, a mathematical puzzle kind of to keep those cheats from taking away too much fun. But Keith Martin loved hiding secret sections, math puzzles, and kind of giving lots of name puzzles in there as well, kind of trying to trip you up a little bit, catch you out, and punish you if you are cheating. There's also some really cool little puzzles whereby you have to render letters into numbers to find sort of hidden paragraphs, quite a few of those. This book is no different really with all its open kind of world adventure. Keith Martin sort of favoured that kind of RPG approach, that kind of style with his central hub, which forms that ice palace, where you can kind of explore all these different key areas. It's a little bit like the port in some of his earlier books, Master of Chaos. Kind of treats that as a hub where you can sort of explore different parts of the city, but you'll always come back, explore a few more. And of course, it had that notoriety score, which was there to keep you within a certain time frame. We have lots of hard puzzles in this one to crack. So there's those clock faces, like I mentioned, those musical notes. So you've got this little image here with those musical notes, which is kind of practically impossible to solve, as the clock puzzle has those visual errors, which is a bit of an issue. And the musical notation puzzle kind of requires a little bit of knowledge of reading music, but not too much. Magic is another thing with Keith Martin. Briefly, he offers you usually a little bit of magic somewhere towards the end of the game where it doesn't make an awful lot of difference, but it's nice to have. Time tracking is another one. So where you're, in this book, required to keep track of how many days it takes you to reach this sphere. But this mechanic hardly makes too much difference. I certainly didn't run out of time when I had to stop using it by the time you reach the Ice Palace, because of course it's just from the beginning to the Ice Palace. So again, it's a little bit like Master of Chaos, where you've got that record of time to keep. The concept of honour I quite liked, or being honourable, is a well-known trait for Keith Martin. Can easily be the difference between winning and losing this adventure game. The magic sword also usually plays a part in these books. So that's quite a well-known trait. There's usually a magic sword in there somewhere. So Keith Martin obviously loved a magic sword. A real winning point is the depth and originality throughout this book. Whilst sticking closely to the central themes, the ice premise is well presented with loads of atmosphere. The locations, the encounters, they're all really high-end. I really like the interesting features that you can interact with this adventure, like all the different potions, like the potions of fire breath, the Ice Palace episodes, the Ice Mausoleum, all really well described, very rich in atmosphere. And also you've got all these bizarre little helpful spirits that can aid you once you get to this Ice Palace, and lots of magic to exploit in there as well. There are those two unusual puzzles that I keep harping on about, but there's lots of creative encounters, and of course you've got those original ice gaunts as well that kind of lurk around. Now, similar to the hub in that Master of Chaos, the Ice Palace is clearly the act where Keith Martin sort of centres the action and the importance of item finding. It involves collecting quite a few items, puzzle deciphering, and sort of navigating all the different sections in order to survive this particular area. Now, Tower of Destruction has many good points. It's well written, it's fast in terms of the ground covered, and it's highly playable. It has lots of lastability as well. You will find yourself coming back to this one to kind of find out what else you can investigate in that Ice Palace, or whether there's another route to victory. And on the other hand, it kind of boasts hard puzzles and even sort of harder encounters. There's a couple of really tough beasts in here. It's a worthwhile adventure simply for the unique ideas that it includes, but it may leave you a little bit underwhelmed by the end. So if you sum all that up, I would give this book a high 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Tower of Destruction. So that's my review for this game book. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment in the comment section. Tell me what your thoughts on this one was, whether you had issues with all those puzzles, whether you sailed through it. But let me know either way. Share the channel out if you think you know someone who may also like this one. The next book we're going to review is book 47. That's The Crimson Tide. So I'll catch you all in that review.